This week in Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, our favorite trio comes up with a story and concept design which they have to present for their school. Stay tuned. What is going on, guys? My name is DJ Milez and I'm here to review episode 3 of Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken. And before we begin this episode, if you can go ahead and like this video and subscribe to my channel for more anime content. And now let's go ahead and talk about this episode because this show continues to impress me the more I watch it. And this episode also establishes how fleshed out these characters are and actually how cohesive all of them are towards one another. And this is by far the best episode yet because this episode fleshes out these characters. Kanamari, you can just tell she's going to be a very loving parent when she gets older because although she lets Mizusaki and Asakusa run wild, she's very stern and direct with them. They have to get things done, but goes out of her way to make sure to not hurt their feelings or their motivation because they might be distraught by quote unquote the real world, right? Or in this particular case, a crunch deadline. So we learned in this episode that the girls have to make a presentation for the Budget Deliberations Committee on why their club should get funding and for them to attain club status. But because they are an animations team, it's going to cost a little bit more as opposed to doing something live action. Not to say they want to do that anyway. And I love the math broken down here by Kanamari, where they're like, okay, you want to make a 5-minute presentation? That's really cool. That you would need 12 frames a second, 3,600 drawings produced. And that's also not factoring in the work besides the animation. And because there's only 2 people in this team, because I wouldn't really draw anything, you would need 50 consecutive days in a row of work nonstop without sleep. So how do you think that's going to work? Let's make our lives a little bit easier. We're going to make it 3 minutes, but it also has to be action-packed and it has to wow people. So where do we go from here? And then we see Mizusaki's passion really come to full effect in this episode and what makes her tick and what makes her really love the medium and genre altogether, right? Just the motions of running or someone even tripping and falling and just seeing how they react to that. Even something so simple, but how it resonates in real time when you see it drawn in an animation really speaks out to her. And that's the thing that she wants to focus on. And with Asakusa, she's just in love with the process itself. So she's kind of going to take a seat back on this, but as long as she gets to do what she loves, then there's no filter for her. And I do like how Kanamari was telling Mizusaki in the first half of the episode that, yeah, Asakusa has no filter, and because she just loves to do something, she doesn't realize how much work can be involved. But if you give the girl free reins on what she wants to do, you know, there's no stopping her. And again, that kind of attitude is super infectious when you go into the animation world because there's a lot of things you have to consider. And I think that's why the show is so cohesive with our 3 main protagonists and how they really bring out the best in one another. Seeing Mizusaki's passion really stand out about animators do their homework, right? They just don't envision someone grabbing a sword and slashing it left and right. They might actually have a sword with them and then pull it out of the sheath, do the motion themselves, see how the wrinkles affect the clothing, see how it affects their forearms and muscles and all that stuff. And that's really awesome. And that's where we get this storyboard and this concept of a girl with a machete in her hand facing off against a tank. And the cool thing, as Asakusa mentioned, is that you can make something look really jam-packed and you can save production costs if you grab one explosion and then copy and paste it to have numerous explosions. So it looks like it's a huge action set piece when it's just really one piece of action being animated at a time. And how can we make the girl or our protagonist in this story move swiftly and fast? Oh, because, you know, she's going to be in an environment where gravity isn't an issue like it is on Earth. And we're going to give her a cable gun so she can pretty much swing around like Spider-Man, where it seems realistic enough. Because that's the cool thing that they break down in this show is that, okay, as long as we can suspend our disbelief in something, but it looks realistic enough, we'll let it slide, right? And that's why I even like seeing when Asakusa go to space in the first half of this episode, fixing the leak and the holes in the wall, where we see her reimagining herself in outer space. And then when she's hitting on something, she's like, well, wait a minute, if we're in 0 gravity, that means there's no sound, so let's actually get rid of the sound, but let's still put an emphasis and zoom in on what's being done here so we can see how much it pulls the audience in to full effect. Seeing the joy and smile in these girls' faces. I mean, I know this show is very meta when they do the cut back and forth between like their obsession with anime and how animation is done. Even seeing the spark and joy of like, oh, here's our logo, so let's see how it looks like when it's animated. I mean, how many of you actually get excited for stuff like that, right? I mean, when you see the OP of an anime or the opening 5 seconds of like Toei Animation or which studio about to give you X anime being presented in front of us, right? So I like how their creativity goes to something like that, because I get excited when I see the beginning of a studio's name as we're about to see whatever anime we're about to watch, right? And that's such a really fun and charming, endearing quality that these girls have. Speaking of the OP, I was mentioning how last week I was obsessed with this OP and I can't stop snapping my fingers and tapping my feet to the tune. Well, the duo that came out with the song Chalmiko, Easy Breezy, the music video is out now. It came out 2 days ago. I will post a link underneath this video review, but I really like how they had Asakusa's hat in there. And as wild and as crazy as this OP is for this anime, I love how the music video kind of reflects that in their own way as well. And I think that's so much fun. This is such a fun song. I'm sure I'm going to say this time and time again as we get to the very end of this anime, but this is just something that just makes me really excited, and just seeing the joy and innocence of a child just imagining themselves and getting their head warped around the world of animation and that the world is their oyster is such a beautiful message to me. And I really hope more people catch on to this, because now that we have a crunch and deadline for these girls, where are we gonna go and how does the episode end? Is with their story and concept board coming to a close, right? Or the first steps of it anyway. Okay, we see the girl with the machete cutting down a tank, and then what happens? Ba-bum, right? And to be continued. Just like how a lot of high action shonen animes tend to conclude themselves. I mean, especially when you think about something like Dragon Ball Z, where they're like, okay, Goku threw a spirit bomb at Frieza. Is Frieza alive or is Frieza dead? We'll find out next week on Dragon Ball Z, right? So I love just how meta this show is, and Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken is such a fun and enjoyable anime that I am happy to be reviewing here for the beginning of 2020. And guys, let me know, what were your favorite moments? Do you like this episode? Did you hate this episode? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel for more anime content down the road. My name is DJ Miles, and as I always say, to be continued, take care.